Thank you for joining us today for Resonance Rising. I'm Marissa Rhodes, your host, and it is my honor to introduce our guest for today, Ruby Somera. Ruby Somera is a brand strategist and founder of Ruby Somera Design Studio, a boutique brand and design studio for healers, visionaries, and soul-led entrepreneurs. After spending nearly 15 years in corporate apparel design, Ruby felt called to a new path, one that honored creativity, alignment, and the deeper truth behind how we lead and serve. Today, she helps conscious leaders build brands that resonate from the inside out through holistic strategy, intuitive design, and soul-led alignment. Her work centers around the belief that business can be a living expression of who we are, not just what we do, and that aligned leadership has the power to ripple far beyond the business world, to which I deeply agree. Through her writing, design, and mentorship, she supports those ready to create from a place of coherence, presence, and truth. And we are so honored to be able to have her as our guest here on this summit. I'm really looking forward to what she'll have to share for us. So, Ruby, before we get started, I'm curious if you'd mind sharing a little bit about your story and what it is that called you to the work that you're doing today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Marissa. I worked in the corporate world for about 15 years, and for a long time, it was very fulfilling from a creative perspective. It was my dream to do something creative in art and in design. And I found this amazing job working for a major lifestyle brand where I was able to rise up the corporate ladder, and it was amazing. I got to travel, I got to do all the fun things and look at art and design art and create fashion that was widely known, globally known. And it was fulfilling until it wasn't fulfilling anymore. And something inside of me started to shift as I became more aware of myself and the environment that I was in, where I started to feel like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole.
Mm,
Um, I was in a very toxic environment, as many corporate cultures are,
right.
very dog eat dog, every man for himself. And it wasn't very supportive. And that it was something that I was really craving, was some kind of support system where we could all lift each other up. I felt myself doing that, but there was no reciprocity. And at some point after I had my son, I really started to feel like I didn't want to do that work anymore. And I felt like I was shrinking more and more every day, doing work that just wasn't fulfilling to me anymore. And what I really wanted was to go home and be with my son and nurture this other part of me that was starting to come alive. And I remember going to work every day thinking to myself, there's got to be something else. There's got to be more than this. There's got to be a different way. And what's my plan B? How am I going to get out of this? I bought a house. And at that point, I thought I was locked in. That was it. I had to work there forever. My life was over. I needed to pay the mortgage. So at this
Right.
point, I didn't know what other options there were. In the meantime, I was fulfilling this other creative desire that I had where I was doing photography on the side. And so I was building a website and I didn't even know it was all happening by design, obviously.
Yeah.
Like the universe was preparing me. The universe knew why I was doing this. I didn't know why. I wasn't sure. I thought I was going to do like a side hustle kind of thing. But as it turns out, the job abruptly ended. And it was kind of an answer to my prayers because it was the week that I moved into my house. And
Wow. Talk about pressure.
yes, it was very scary, very scary. But at that point, I knew that I had no desire to write a resume and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I had this website that was almost ready to be launched and the timing was impeccable as usual. And so it was a gift and it was a very, very scary time. And I chose to have courage and believe in something greater than myself. And at the same time, I was scared out of my mind, shaking in my boots, not thinking that we're gonna like lose everything, lose our house, live under a bridge. And here I am today with my business, 8.5 years later.
Wow, what a journey that has been. And like you said, the recognition that something was already leading you all along, just the little breadcrumbs, whatever it was that shifted you to um, working on this creative project and the photography and the website and everything. Sounds like it set you up right for that moment.
It set me up in ways that I could never have planned out myself. And that's just how it is. That's the divine timing, that's the trusting and the knowingness. And yeah, I never would have known. I never would have dreamed in a million years that this would be my life today.
Mhm. Wow. That's powerful. That brings me to our first question. You talk about how business can be a spiritual path or a path of self-expression to something much bigger than yourself. So, in your experience, what do you feel like becomes possible when we treat our work not just as performance or the thing that we do to pay the bills, but more as a reflection of like our own souls becoming?
I it has been such a mirror reflection of all of the things that needed to be transformed and transmuted because of all of the fear that came up with making this choice. It was a 0 point for me. It was that choice point where I could have said, well, I can write another resume, and it made me sick. It made me feel sick to my stomach to think of working in another office, to whatever it was. I did not want to do it. I just knew my body was saying hard no. And I took the leap, and in that way, it was reflecting back to me all of the things that I needed to address in order for me to get to the point I am today. So there was a lot of fumbles, a lot of obstacles, a lot of really horrible clients and a lot of really amazing clients and a lot of fear within all of that. So if it wasn't for like my own practice of wanting to witness myself, which of course, like I wasn't doing that throughout this time, I was surviving. I felt like I was just surviving at the time. But because of my spiritual practice, I was able to see a reflection of what still needed to be healed. So in that way, like I could see, oh, I am seeing myself continue to hustle, and I am seeing myself continue to grind like I did when I was in corporate, like just working until I was so tired and grumpy, and I would project all my irritability onto those around me, my loved ones, and it didn't feel good even back then. So for me, it was like, what is that? I don't like that. How do I change that? And yet we're still being fed the narrative of, but this is how you do it. So
Right, absolutely. That leads to something I think really important, which is those old paradigms of survival and hustle and grind. From my perspective, they're beginning to fall away
Mhm.
in both leadership, whether that's in the corporate sphere or in entrepreneurship. Like you're describing, you came into contact with this recognition that that was not sustainable. It didn't feel good. It was what you left in corporate. You don't want to replicate it again in your business. So, what are the things that you see starting to dissolve around that kind of old way of leading ourselves or being in business? And what would you say is rising in their place instead?
Yeah, I mean, what an opportunity we're in right now. Feels very chaotic to the nervous system because what we've known as leadership, which is this very masculine driven narrative of the patriarchy, which is not, obviously, I'm sure your audience knows, this is not a male female kind of energy. It's a masculine driven energy, which is very cognitive. It's up here. It's very head driven. It's not embodied. And so all of the feeling, the body feeling, the sensation in our body had to be muted. The feelings had to be pushed aside where they're still there. It's still alive in us, yet, and that's where we're bursting, right? That's where the feelings that we're feeling wants to come out of our bodies. That's where the nervous system is like something is not in alignment. they're saying to do it this way. I want to succeed, so I want to do it the way that everybody says what it means to succeed. Yet my body is telling me something different. And so
Yes.
I'm not in coherence anymore. So to be able to align that masculine and feminine is to be able to say, like, I feel these things and I'm going to take action on these things that I'm feeling within my body. And I'm going to trust my body that this is right for me and it may not be right for others. So the old way that's falling away is this hustle, this grind, this doing things in an order of the societal narrative, right? It's not where we are when we are following somebody else's strategy that doesn't align with our own. We can't ever get comfortable with that. So coming into coherence and being able to lead from a place of heart is, I
Mhm.
think, what we're missing right now, because it is from this, if we are continuing to just lead from the head and we're not like bridging that gap of like the feminine and the masculine, what's embodied, what is the sensations within our body that wants to come through, we're always going to feel scared because it's not true anymore.
The disembodiment literally can show up as like working with patients in my own practice
Mhm.
shows up as even not feeling like literally not feeling sensation
Yeah.
below shoulder level. And I think, as you're mentioning, our culture has been misinformed that that is the way to do things. And yet the disembodiment also cuts us off from vital, necessary resources that only exist when we can go into sensation or when we go into the heart space or just the inner knowing in general. It's even the unconscious field of knowing where some wisdom streams in that we don't know where it comes from, or it's the little hit of insight that we follow, just like what got you, it sounds like, to creating a whole different business before you even were at the point that the job you had was no longer available. So I think, yeah, it is really necessary. So you work with healers, visionaries, creatives
Mhm.
in the work that you're doing today. What kind of inner work or shifts do you see as most needed for those who are wanting to lead in this new era that we're stepping into?
Oh my goodness. I feel like, well, just even something that you said, it is bringing more vitality into our work. And the vitality comes from here. It's
Yeah.
not something that you can think, because when you're thinking, and I feel this with so many of my clients that are so heart centered, but when it comes to their brand, it becomes more like, I want to show up like this, or I'm afraid of who's on the other side seeing me. Or I don't want to be judged, or I don't want to be misunderstood, or I don't want to rock the boat. And that for me is hard because I think that you can strike the balance. And and this is what I see in so many of my clients, which is, this fear of showing up authentically. And they are, when they're with me, they're all open. They're so authentic. And I feel their heart and I feel their desires and I feel how they want to change the world. And yet we're still very reluctant to move into the direction. And I feel this for myself in my own business,
Yeah.
very reluctant to move in the direction of speaking your truth or moving in alignment with what gives you the most life force, the most joy, where it's like just so natural. It feels so good. It feels so easy. It's not work, where it's, you don't go home after a day's worth of work and you're different. It's all the same. It all becomes the same thing. Life and work and business and everything is all intertwined now. And so we live from those core values. And so for me, what I'm seeing is the fear of speaking your truth and what the causality of that will be. Who's going to be mad at me if I say this?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that is what I'm going to focus on, even though people are craving, they're hungry for authenticity, right? And yet even when we do find ourselves being authentic, sometimes it becomes performative. We see that all the time. Like, is this real? Can I trust this? What we've learned is not to be able to trust and be discerning of what is real and what isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever we're disconnected from self, disconnected from our inner compass, if you want to call it that, it leaves us really susceptible to like this seeking externally, seeking outside of ourself. But you said something earlier, which was about coherence with the self. And what that requires is this connection to what is true for you, which
Mhm.
accurately may not be for everyone, right? And that is okay. But so often what people are hooking themselves to is, well, what's the whole crowd going to say about this? And this sense that we should somehow be able to please everyone. When the reality is we're not doing it right if we aren't being polarizing for some people, right? I mean, we're if we're trying to attract our tribe, if you will, it
Mhm.
requires that we're our most authentic self, which is going to be off-putting to certain people, and learning to be able to contain that within us or to be with, as you said earlier, the sensation of that
Mhm.
discomfort, because so often we're afraid of
Yeah.
that feeling.
And I think that that's kind of the work that we need to do right now is to be able to expand our tolerance for what feels scary and know that we are safe in that. It doesn't have to be hurtful. It's not about trying to be so polarizing that you're tearing down a group. It's about being able to say what's on your heart and stand in that knowingness that it is true for you and it is going to be repelling to many people. And that's okay. That because we are nuanced. There are so many different layers to humanity. And I think that that's what we're missing right now is that level of humanity within our leaders that makes it so that we aren't being seen for who we are and we're not being heard and when we don't feel that sense of belonging, then that's what keeps us separate from each other, right?
Mhm.
We just want to feel like we can all belong, that we all belong in some way. And I think that there's no way for us to move forward unless we bring more humanity into our leaders. And when I say leaders, I mean anybody that has a platform, anybody that speaks out, anybody that says anything to anyone, even the leader in a household,
That's
right?
right. Yes, yes,
The caregivers, the teachers, that anybody that has any voice, we need to come home to ourselves. We need to heal our wounds. We need to see that we are safe within ourselves. We need to create that inner safety so that we can come out and shape the world differently for the people, for those young ones that are next generations, for the future.
yes. I'm glad that you brought that up about like kind of defining what is a leader, because it's so easy in our minds to go to the leader of a corporation, CEOs, vice presidents. And just like you're saying, the reality is if you've got influence anywhere in your life, you are a leader. Even if you're sitting at home by yourself, how do you lead yourself, right? I mean, there
Yeah,
that is just
that's
as
the first
viable and
place.
valid. Right. It is the first place, like you said.
Yeah,
And it is where the any sort of work or hope for change for the greater collective must begin.
yeah,
We
yeah.
can't shift anything if it's not happening at first inside ourselves.
I mean, I think that we can all be clear that what we're seeing in our leadership right now is very obvious that there are so many unhealed
Yes.
individuals in government right now or our, community leaders. And it's the way that was learned. And so it's not like we have anyone to blame, but being able to see this, all of us waking up to what feels right, resonant with us, true for us, that might not be true for you. If we're not seeing this and actually saying, okay, the only way that I can make a change is to change myself and to know that I can trust me. I have safety within me. And when I can have safety within me, I can create safety within my family system. And then that ripples out, and my son can go to school and he has safety within himself.
Mhm.
He's not going to be the one that's gunning down a school because
Right.
he has safety within himself. He's safe to feel things because I'm safe to feel what I feel. And when I'm safe to feel what I feel, I can tell him it's safe here to be with me, to feel what you feel. I can do that with my husband too. And then that just ripples out when people feel safe within themselves, and they can go out into the world and they can create that safety for others.
That's right.
It's so powerful. And yet, we're still in such a infant stage of this, but I
Mhm.
have hope. I have so much hope.
Yes, I do too, because I think there are a lot of people that are starting to recognize this, that it starts within. And just like you said, I mean, you're really painting the picture of something that I hold very deeply within my own knowing, which is the ways that this is lineage work. To do these things today, it starts to liberate what was not possible for our ancestors, and then it changes what is possible and available to our descendants that come
Yeah.
after us. I think other people have referred to it as this as well, but a sense of like that in and of itself is the new generational wealth. That it's one thing to have assets that you hand down as inheritance. What is the emotional inheritance that you are passing down, though? And how is that shaping the culture that your children and your grandchildren and their grandchildren then live in? And I think that's something that was not thought about previously. We come from such colonizing backgrounds, and that's
Mhm.
what everything has been built off of. But that's also what is starting to crumble. I think our culture is showing that in the manifestation of the leadership
Oh,
that is
yeah,
happening today.
100%. I mean, we have the resources now that our parents didn't have. And it's amazing where we are right now. It's amazing to be alive in this time space reality. We have opportunities that our ancestors didn't have. We can talk to each other online, you where you are, me where I am, and have these conversations that, others will open up and be able to listen to and feel the resonance with it. It's incredible what we have at our fingertips right now, and it's a responsibility. And
Yes.
some people are going to make a choice that isn't in this same direction that we're going, but the more people that are going in this direction, the more opportunity there is to reshape what the future can be and can hold. And we are in a purification stage. Like,
Mhm.
it's breaking down, it's burning up. And this is wild. It's a wild time to be alive, but it's incredible. I mean, I see myself repeating things that my parents said that was very harmful, right? At the time, where they didn't know any better. They were doing their best. They did what their parents did, and so on and so forth. And when I hear myself saying these things, I can have that awareness. I can see myself. I'm conscious enough to say, whoa, that is something that was harmful. I'm now saying this to my son, and I have to catch myself and repair it. And those are the things that are where we break the cycle. That's when we say, I'm sorry. Wow, I just said something that is not what I believe. That is not true for me. You know what I mean? And that's where I think that patterns, the fragmentation comes back. We come back to wholeness. We put it back together. We repair the fragmented parts of ourselves and send our children off to be more whole. And of course, I know I'm doing damage. However, I'm not enlightened, right? I'm moving
That's right.
toward that, and I have grace for myself, but man, like the more that we can do this and have that self-awareness, like that is leadership. And so I think that this is the work. This is a huge responsibility for us.
Absolutely. I want to go back to what you just said about, yeah, not being a perfectly enlightened parent. That's a reality. Like, we are human and we're going to have these moments of our own fragmentation and our own, acting out in certain ways. But I think, like you said, it is the example that we can model of bringing conscious awareness to that, repair. And if you think about it, so, we're talking about that in a parent-child dynamic. It's really what's also needed, whether that is in a business,
Mhm.
the ability to repair among team members or things like that in the government, in so many levels. It is exactly what is needed is this emotional intelligence and growth to go, okay, we're repeating something here. We're
Mhm.
repeating something that's tragic. And instead of just letting ourselves keep doing that, we're going to pay attention. We're going to notice. We're going to go back and apologize and make the reparation that we can.
Mhm.
And then expect that we're probably going to do it again and have to do that same process again. And that is a part of the reality of any sort of shift is it takes repetition. It takes reiterating the same kinds of dynamics and then shifting them little by little over
Mhm.
time. And I'm so glad that you brought that up in that context of parent child and how that just expands. I mean, I
It
can't,
expands.
yes, yes. And
That's
I can't help but say it's the like as above, so below, as within, so without. This is the perfect example of that.
That is what it means to expand. That is what it means to upgrade your life because you're now becoming more aware. You're allowing the intelligence to flow through you. And what comes through you can be then pushed outward. If you have the blocks, if you're still blocked, which I am, of course I am. I'm human. I have all kinds of problems. But that is what we were just talking about. Those are the parts of us that we then can tune into and say, "Whoa, I see that part of me. I see the humanity in me. I'm in this body. I feel what it does when I think these thoughts. I feel it in my body, what it does, and it doesn't feel good. And I can feel where it's blocked, where then that it can't flow, right? The words can't come out. I just, this is where like being able to tune into yourself and be able to listen to the whispers of your heart and your soul, which can't happen if you're up here. And
That's right.
so that's where the change happens. That's where we're going to create a different world, a different paradigm. From this point right here, when we choose to heal ourselves, which is not going to happen overnight, and we're going to continue to make mistakes, and we're going
Yeah.
to continue to repair them, and we're going to make another mistake, and then it's a constant evolution, and there is no end point until we die. But if we want to journey through the next life with more
That's right.
clarity, where we break the lineage of suffering,
Hmm.
this is how we do
I don't know what your beliefs are, but I just even think as you say that, even the concept of
it.
incarnation, the reality of that is what is it? A repetition. It is
Hmm.
that coming back in, trying again, doing
Hmm.
things hopefully differently, but maybe repeating some of the same
Yeah.
mistakes. And then here we go again, right?
Hmm.
And we see that everywhere in life. Sometimes people are so afraid that, well, if I don't get it 100% correct or I'm not perfect in my execution of something, then I might as well not try. Again, it goes back to that very like binary thinking it's all or nothing. When the
Right.
reality is, I mean, look at nature. Like every season has its cycle, and then we come back again and we try again, right? We do
Hmm.
it over and over.
Over and
And
over.
so why is it that we think that that's not what's going to happen with us, with our own life?
Yeah, and I am so guilty of that myself because when I mess up, I think, well, what did I do all that work for? I just
Mhm.
spent like 40 minutes in meditation and now I'm just off like losing it again. Like I'm ungrounded and I'm easily persuaded or affected by the outside world. I'm very sensitive. It is very hard for me to be in the world, I think sometimes because I'm picking up all of the things from every side of me and I'm just really trying to stay grounded, And I think that that's like just to go back to circle back to where we started, that is a strategy that works for me to keep my nervous system intact.
Yeah.
For me not to allow too much of the outside noise to get into me or into my field because
Mhm.
it does affect me. And so my work right now is to be able to strengthen my energetic bubble so that not so much can penetrate me because
Yes.
I don't really like how I act when I hear things or when I see things, I start to get panicky. It creates anxiety in my body and I don't work well in that state. I don't function in that state. And so for me, my strategy is to meditate every day, to go on walks, to exercise, to read books that help bring me back into my body, into presence, to do practices that help me to remember that I'm breathing, that I'm here, that this is my reality. And the only thing that I can affect is right here, right now, in this moment. And
Yeah.
so for me or any other leader, it is to do what feels best for them, what feels most in rhythm for them, right? And it's going to be different. Some people love being out there and being in the world and talking to people and they can handle all of the energy around them. That makes them feel more alive. And I love that for people, but that's not for me.
Yes. Just to add to what you are saying, that can only come from listening to yourself, from knowing yourself well. Because I do think so often when we're seeking, what is the strategy that helps me get back in my body? Tell me what to do. The what to do only comes from connecting to the self, listening to what works, what doesn't work, and then doing that over and over again. Very much that repetition of kind of fine tuning over time.
Yeah.
um, how you know yourself, what you know works best,
Mhm.
the things that feel good to you, like you said, and that's going to be different than your best friend or, your business coach or something like that.
That's why this work is intuitive. It's not
Yeah.
something that I can tell anybody how to do it. But what I do tell my clients is what feels easy,
Yes.
what feels hard. That's when you know that something is in alignment, in rhythm with your heart. And when you know something is out of alignment, I'm still working with clients that are like, this is hard. I want all these things and I want to get there and I want to thrive, but this is hard. And yet you're going in this direction of hard, but can we give ourselves permission to do what feels easy?
Hmm.
And then what does that look like? And it's miraculous.
Hmm.
It's a miracle what happens when you release that resistance to ease. I mean, it sounds so crazy when you say it out loud, right? It can't be easy. There's just no way it can be easy. The
Hmm.
world has told us that it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
That what's breaking down that's breaking down. No, that's a lie. That's a lie that we've been told.
Hmm.
When we have ease, that is when we're in our truth. That is when we can trust ourselves. We can have challenges. I mean, yes, challenges, and that's fine. And we can have, moments of doubt.
Yes.
But when you can listen in closely to yourself and you trust that feeling, like, is this doubt coming from the voice of fear or the voice of love? Is
Mm.
it steering me in the direction of, I'm afraid because my body has known something different my whole life, or I'm afraid because of the bigness that I might get to experience.
Yeah.
the reality of my profound divinity, my closeness to God. That's what I'm reaching for, is like, how can I live my purpose?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how can I start, like, like chipping away at what's keeping me from my purpose? The things that I learned in my lifetime or in many lifetimes ago. I find that to be the biggest hurdle,
Hmm.
honestly. What is it? I ask myself that every day. What is it? Because we're so unaware. It's so
Yeah.
deeply ingrained into our cells and in our body. This thing happens and I'm afraid. I'm like, I feel it everywhere in my body. I'm afraid. Is that because it's the story that I have been telling myself this whole time, that I learned one day because of something that happened to me in my childhood? Or is this because I'm afraid of what's possible?
Yeah. And the complexity of that, that often there are so many layers to
Yeah.
those moments, right? It could be many of those things,
Yeah.
but bringing conscious awareness to these things that, like you said, if we aren't conscious of, they run an operation. They're what's running the life. It is what keeps you stuck in hard mode or working against yourself in so many ways. I'm really glad that you were bringing that forward and highlighting the necessity of that kind of conscious work, because that's what it is. And when we talk about the hard things versus what's easy, it is work. This is work that you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, I think there can be something different between like hard versus what's uncomfortable, right? It's
Right.
uncomfortable work.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to face uncomfortable challenges or uncomfortable sensations all along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But we
Yeah.
can make a choice with how we view that. Um, and I think the choice is what opens up possibility, which is what you're saying through all of these things. Yeah.
It takes courage. It
Yeah.
takes courage. This is not for the faint of heart.
That's right.
It is not. You are literally facing your shadows.
That's right.
And that is what it will take to become the greatest leader that you
Hmm.
can be. Like, that is the kind of courage that we're actually looking for.
That's
Yeah,
right.
when you can see the humanity in yourself, you can see the humanity in others. Then we don't judge, then we don't criticize, then we don't need to start wars, then we don't have to, like, all agree on the same ideology. Like, we could have
Right.
differences, we can be different and still love each other. And I'm not trying to be Pollyanna here, but it really is that nuanced. It really can be that good, that we can still love the person that has a completely different point of view than we have, that comes from a totally different background, that comes from a whole different culture or belief system or religion. It's okay that we can all get to exist, and that is the humanity that is going to create the greatest leaders. That's what we need.
Amen to that. And I hope that that is what is coming forward. I believe that it is. And Ruby, before we end here today, there's one final question that I've been asking each speaker, each leader that has been a part of this summit. And that is, how do you know what's in soul alignment for you? Maybe it's what it feels like in your body. Maybe it's just the knowing, but how do you know that and stay attuned to that in your life?
Mm. I follow what feels the most fluid, the most organic, the joy, the beauty, the love, what it makes me feel like it's not work. It can't possibly be real. This is too good to be true when I allow it. And I think that that's the biggest thing. When I say, wow, it can be this good. It can be this easy. It can be this abundant. And just allowing it, my body feels relaxed. Yeah, I feel excited. I feel easeful,
Mm,
calm, harmonious, peaceful. That feels like alignment to me.
absolutely. I just, even all of the words, like the energy of the words, you can feel that. the expansion, kind of circling back to what we said earlier.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm. Ruby, thank you so much for joining with us here today and for spending this time with us and sharing your wisdom and your perspectives. And for anyone who is interested in your work, all of your links and your free gift and everything will be listed right below this video. I encourage everyone to take a look at that and reach out to Ruby if you're interested in doing more work with her. Again, Ruby, it was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marissa. Thank you for your good work and for creating this summit and for putting this work out there. Thank you.
Mm.